Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good whatever time it is, wherever you are. I am Aneesh de Vos. And apart from our amazing guest, we have David Buckler. And I think that's all I'm going to give to you this week, David, because you have far too much fanfare.
Thank you. I don't have to roll my eyes quite so much at the opening then, do I?
Possibly not.
Or hide.
If you're not careful, I'm going to knock you out. I've now learnt how to get rid of people.
Yeah, I've seen the clip often enough.
Absolutely.
I thought it was you to begin with till I saw who it was.
Infamous clip. But we do have a very, very lovely human being called Amanda Glenister. And Amanda is a lovely, lovely friend of mine. And I thought, you know what? Amanda will have something to say. Let's invite Amanda on. And Amanda came with this amazing subject. So as a lead-in, Amanda leads a team of social prescribing link workers in Newcastle. And she's here to tell us more about prescribing services and how it can benefit individuals. I don't know about you, David, but my first question to you, Amanda, is, come on, what is a social prescribing link worker? I heard about it last night when I was laid in bed, perusing as I do on my phone, and there was a little thing about a job advert. Anybody that employs me, it's okay, I'm not leaving, I just happened to be looking. And it said, social prescribing link worker. So I had a good look around and I thought, well, this is amazing. But enough of me, Amanda. Tell us, what is it? What does it do?
Thank you very much for that lovely welcome, Aneesh. I feel a bit embarrassed. I felt my cheeks sort of blush a little bit there, but thanks. That's kind of you. I'll send you the 20 quid in the post a bit later on.
Thank you very much. I need more tea and chocolate.
So I think probably the best way to describe or around social prescribing, can't even talk, is around looking at the gap. And a good example of this was I had a conversation with one of the GPs that in the practices that I work with this week. And he was talking to me about, he was phoning up to find out a bit about me in the service and all the rest of it in the week. And he was going, do you know what? I only have 5 or 10 minutes per patient. A lot of the patients that come in and I see, they don't have a diagnosable condition and there's not medication or a treatment I can give them. And it's all these social problems or, low mood, or they just need to exercise a bit more, or diet, or they've got housing issues or money issues, or they're lonely. They just come in for a chat. And, they regularly come through that kind of revolving door because they're on their own and they're isolated. And so he was saying about the frustrations, going, I really want to be able to help them, but I've only got 5-10 minutes. I don't really quite know how to help them, where to point them. And I was like, that's where we come in, because that's exactly the job that we do. So very much, we're non-medical, but it's really taking that kind of coaching approach with individuals. We can spend more time with them. So typically appointments will be about an hour. And we do an initial assessment with people. And that's really just having that chat and understanding what life is like for them at the moment, what's their lifestyle like, what are their social connections like, how do they get on with managing their symptoms. And that's not just about medications and things, but actually things that they perhaps do to help themselves. So we discuss all those things, work, volunteering, activities, and then it's really about finding out what's important to the person. So it's not about us telling the individual, you need to do this, you need to do that, you need to stop smoking, whatever it is. It's like, what's important to you at the moment? What's something that you perhaps want to focus on and change or improve? And then working with that person to set some goals, really. So they set their goals.
Right.
We help them formulate those. But then we are linked into quite aware I'm starting off in a long ramble. You might have wanted a more brief introduction to social prescribing, so I do apologise. But yeah, so we're linked into and know a lot of the community assets, other organisations, charities, you know, third sector, social services, whatever it is, and we can either refer people into them directly, we can signpost them in, you know, people to them depending on their level of activation, how motivated they're feeling at a given time. So, and it's that job that the doctor doesn't have the time, and he has so much medical knowledge and things going on in his head. They don't have the, you know, sort of capacity to know all of that going on in the community. So that's where we come in. We research, we make all those community connections, and we work with individuals minimum 6 months, but can be on 2-3 years at times.
Wow. David, did you know about this?
No, not too much. I've heard the title often, and I must admit, it's a grey area for me until I read a couple of links that you send me, and it is pretty impressive. And what impresses me most, I think, is the catchphrase, or the modality dear to my heart. Person-centered comes up a lot in the literature, and that grabbed me. So I thought I must know a bit more about this. So thanks for that, Amanda. You didn't waffle at all. I think you accused yourself of. I think it was it said a lot in a very short space of time.
Yeah, I kind of feel as though I've really kind of got the underpinnings of it now in terms of how I understand it. So, Amanda, the organisation that you work for, is that attached to anything, or is it a standalone organisation? You know, where is this coming from, I guess, is what I'm asking.
Yeah, so just to say, social prescribing is nationwide. So wherever you live, you know, if you just check in with your GP practice and ask, have you got a social prescribing link worker in this practice? Most GP practices do now. We've been going, it's coming up our 6th year. I've only been with the organisation a year. So just to put that out there, I've not been there that long in it. But yes, and I think we were one of the first services amongst a few others in the UK to roll it out and really sort of model it and try it before, and then it's like widened out, and especially over the last sort of 2-3 years there's been a lot more funding coming from the government, and it's that recognition of that gap in services, but also it's, you know, by scaffolding support around the person with, you know, the GPs, nurses, and then ourselves, it's also saving and supporting sort of the GP and nurses that tend to refer into us, and of course other services can refer into us as well, from the wider community, but it's, you know, nuts and bolts. It's also a cost saving, you know, because if we're able to spend that time with individuals rather than a GP, you can understand sort of how that kind of works. But also it's less people are going into perhaps the GP service if they're getting our support, but they're also showing savings in attendance at accident and emergency as well. So yeah, so there's that aspect of it. So yeah, it's doing that kind of wraparound support for the person, and as David rightly said, it's very much person-centered, finding out what the person wants to work on, what's important to them, helping and very much enabling. So it's you know, we don't obviously want people to get into the dependency side of it. It is about helping them to help themselves, but obviously depending on their level of activation, we might be more involved in the beginning if they're quite low activations at the moment.
And in terms, I suppose, yeah, I would like to know more about the outcomes of this in terms of, you know, how that reflects for the people themselves in terms of how much more integrated are people to access the services by themselves as well, and also the outcomes reflected back into the pressure on a system that we know, and we have a few rants about that, don't we, David, on a system that is incredibly incredibly under pressure. And I'm going to add a third thing because it's just rolling off my tongue. what about your work in terms of the organisation that you're in under COVID? There we go, 3 questions.
Yeah, you might have to
Take it as you like it.
individually, because that might be a bit too much from the head to take, Aneesh. But so the service I'm in, I work for a lovely organisation, which is a CIC, and there's only about sort of 50, but we've got three main teams or hubs, if you like. So I'm based in my team in Newcastle. We've got one in South Tyneside and then one in North Tyneside, and we my team's contracted into sort of a service which is called Ways to Wellness. So it's ourselves and also mental health concerns. So there's the 2 organisations, the 2 providers that work into that contract. And it's predominantly west end of Newcastle and the outer west that we work in, which tend to be some of the deprived areas. Newcastle, where you patients, voting clients need those kind of services. So that's kind of where we work in terms of outcomes for individuals. I'd say it's very rewarding work to do. And again, depending on where somebody is, we call it a journey. So for all our clients, we always call it a journey. And sometimes, like life, you hit bumps in the road and turns and setbacks and things like that. So it's really walking with them on that journey. Sometimes perhaps pointing a little bit in the right direction, but trying to enable them to take some of those steps themselves. And I'm just thinking about some of the clients that we work with. It can be really varied. We can be working with people that, so our service in particular has a criteria. So each social prescribing provider, depending what the CCG, the clinical commissioning group in each area, have commissioned, might have different criteria. So our service works with people aged 40 to 74 with long-term health conditions. So things like COPD, asthma, diabetes 1 and 2, had heart failure, heart disease, osteoporosis, things like that. But other services, sometimes working in the same practices, because there might be more than one provider in each practice. For other services, it might be much wider criteria. It might be 18 plus, perhaps presenting with some kind of mental health issue. So whether it's depression or just sort of a lower grade, needs some help and assistance. And as I'm sure you all know, and probably a lot of your listeners will know, presenting problem often isn't the problem. So when you start working with someone and start digging out, and suddenly you get a whole host of things coming in. So we help with all kinds of things. It might be somebody with COPD that's smoking, and having those conversations with an individual. Again, it's not saying you must stop smoking, but looking at, tell me a little bit about why you smoke. What do you get from it? And exploring both sides of the ambivalence, in terms of what's good about it for you, and then perhaps what's not so good about it, and really sort of those sort of techniques. I'm thinking of one client in particular that I've worked with diabetes, and he's made some great strides. I mean, he's been fabulous in making massive changes to his diet and exercise, and his diabetes actually is in remission. He's not having medication anymore, So it can be all kinds of things. It might be help with adaptations and equipment. So I can think of, it can be sometimes the simplest thing, that make a massive difference. As we talked about earlier, it's almost like a pebble in a pond, isn't it? I can think of a client I was working with quite long-term physical and mental health issues, with mobility issues. Did have a mobility aid, but back was getting sore using it and things, getting quite low, being at home, feeling quite isolated. And a simple thing with working with like the community response and rehab team, getting them involved to like reassess that. Just getting a different style of walker has made a massive impact on that person. now they're able to, you know, go and meet their grandkids from school, and walk them home, not having to stop anymore, you know, because they haven't got the pain and things like that. And just sometimes the smallest things can have some really significant transformations in life. And often people just don't know where to go. They don't know who to ask for help, you know, help or support, or where to go with it. So I think that's really where we come in trying to sort some of those things out. Sometimes it might be housing issues, and trying to, you know, get adaptations done, or somebody rehoused into a different area for various reasons. Benefits is another big one, you know. Yeah. And you mentioned about COVID and how the service has been impacted on COVID. Yeah, so it's been a challenge, because a lot of what we do is sometimes tackling that social isolation, and connecting people with community activities and community groups. You know, it might be a walking group or a local craft group, or, you know, going to a gym, or, you know, those kind of things. Everything's locked down, so it's been a little bit more challenging. But, you know, a lot of partners have adapted and tried to do things online, and do offerings over the phone and things like that. Of course, we've had to have consideration of some of the harder to reach clients who perhaps aren't tech savvy. There's others with language barriers as well, and particularly in the West End of Newcastle, we've got, you know, quite a diverse background. So also working with partners and looking at people that are developing, giving out, you know, tablets, for example, and then lessons to help people get online, because in this time, if you're not online and tech savvy, it's super isolating.
I was going to say, what about those people that you know, for financial reasons, don't have an access to this? Where's the role then? What happens then as a social prescriber?
Do you in access to technology? Yeah, so that we have identified there are a couple of organisations, and some organisations, including the contractor we work in, have got together to have that kind of chat in terms of how do we reach out to those people, how do we help them. So there is a scheme that's come up that will give people a tablet on loan, almost not to pay for, but on loan, give them the lessons how to use the technology, how to get online and things like that. You know, if they want to, because not everybody does. But it's really interesting speaking to some clients who never used technology prior to this whole lockdown, and then taken to the world with you know different social media sites, and being able to video chat with family and things like that. So it's a different new world that we live in, and we've all had to adapt to it.
That's interesting, isn't it, David, that some people, this is probably a time for them to learn something new, isn't it, in terms of that. Well, they've never used it before, so their world, even though it's closed down, in some ways might have opened up.
I guess there is that initial introduction to it. How do you do that? You know, this is how to use a tablet. How do you do it online if you're holding the tablet? I can see all sorts of logistical problems, but I think it's great. I really do. And I think it was about, you know, your referrals, etc., because you must get quite a lot, especially in emotional well-being situation. And it seems like a link to maybe occupational therapy as well, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, we can link into all kinds of different services, you know, and we make referrals to all kinds of different services. And interestingly, the members, and one of the things that I love is the fact that members of our team come from so many different backgrounds. You know, there's not a prerequisite of you've got to have this
the next question
or experience kind of thing. And actually that diversity brings quite a richness to the team. And I'm very much about sort of, you know, playing to people's strengths and passions as well. So, you know, I think that's a real benefit that, you know, we've had people from perhaps like a, you know, exercise background. We've had people that have perhaps been through psychology degrees, but that's a prerequisite to the job. My background's been working in HR, organisational development, coaching, things like that. So, and we are recruiting at the moment. you know, if anybody's interested, put that out there. But yeah, so all kinds of different backgrounds, and I think the thing for me is, as long as you've got at that core in terms of that empathy, compassion, that real want to kind of help and support people and enable them to help themselves, we can train the skills as long as you've got the kind of right values for the nature of that work.
And they pay as well, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, it's not voluntary. It's paid work, isn't it? These are paid positions.
Yeah.
So who refers somebody in? Can you refer yourself, or do you have to do it through your GP or mental health nurse? Or
ordinarily, so at the moment, predominantly we get referrals through the GP practice, so from the GP or the nurse. However, it's not limited to that. You know, we got a referral in the other week from I think it was the asthma clinic at the hospital. We can get referrals in from, you know, perhaps like, you know, social care from some of our partners as well. So one of the things that we've been doing over the last 6-8 months or so is with the partner organisations that we work with and refer people into or signpost people into. We've been inviting them into our team huddles that we're doing on Zoom, and just saying, tell us a bit more about your service. You know, we know a certain amount, but tell us a bit about your service. How have you adapted in COVID? Kind of what's going on? And then we've told them a bit more about our service, kind of thing, to say that we can do mutual referrals or mutual signposting to each other. So it's very much that community connection. And trying to
stealing our title, Amanda.
Well, I just thought I should get it in there just to make sense. But it is that kind of connecting people together, communities. Another thing that was set up before I joined the organisation, but one of my colleagues put quite a bit of time and effort into it, was setting up a mutual aid group of clients. So them getting together, and I think there was about 15 to 20 that would get together. And although we kind of perhaps input and led on it initially, it was like, right, there you go, you self-manage now. And they got loads from that. You know, they would get in speakers, they'd perhaps get in, say, I don't know, asthma nurses from the hospital, or they'd get in speakers, and they got a lot from being able to connect with one another and you know, chat to each other and support each other. So, you know, there's all kinds of options, and you can get quite creative. And you know me, Aneesh, I do like being creative.
You do like being creative, you do, and you are very creative indeed. Do you know, I'm quite fascinated by it, because it, you know, on paper and from what you're saying, it sounds a really, really useful service. And I'm kind of sat here thinking, you know, I do what I do, but I literally did not know about this. I've heard the term social prescribing, but I did not know about this role. And that's not to say that I know everything. Gee, what I know is could be written on the back of a postage stamp. But I'm just, you know, why do we not know about it? David, why did you not know about it? I'm like, well, I never. This is fabulous.
Well, like you, I think I'm informed, but I'm obviously not.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's this. What's this secret weapon people have been hiding all this time? Which sounds so wonderful and worthwhile. I know about it now, so I'll be spreading the word in any way I can.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, literally, we are going to shout this from the rooftops.
I think it's impressive. You know, have you thought of speaking to your social subscriber organisation? I mean.
Yeah.
I think it's here to stay. You know, I mean, it has been sort of funded through many CCGs across the country but I think it's here to stay because it's absolutely got a value to it.
Yeah.
And it's plugging a gap that's been there for quite a long time.
Especially as you say, you know, we have this GP revolving door thing going on, and you know, that's not derogatory towards the people that are sort of trapped in that situation, because very often it's the only contact they have. Yeah. And as you say, a GP's got 9-10 minutes.
Yeah, if that, you know, sometimes 5 minutes and seeing people, you know, all the time. But we can, you know, I think people, especially during COVID, I think I found with some of my clients, the conversations are perhaps a bit longer, you know, because people are struggling obviously with it, with their mental health and with loneliness, and even sometimes when they've got family around them or friends around them, there's still a feeling of like loneliness and disconnection. So, you know, they can talk to us, but also we can connect them in with, you know, loads of befriending services where they could get a weekly call from somebody, and, you know, there's, you know, various different charities, sort of locally and nationally that do that kind of thing. So, yeah, so I think it is part of the reason for wanting to come on here is to get the word out, because I think I probably wasn't aware of social prescribing till about 2 years, about 2 years ago, so about a year before the post came up. And when I found out about it, I was like, oh my god, that's perfect, that's exactly what's needed. You know, so if you think about, for example, people that perhaps go into the GP, they're diagnosed with perhaps like a mild depression for whatever reason, and they might get tablets, and they might even be referred to a talking therapy service, but the wait list for the talking therapy service is 3 to 6 months.
Yeah,
you know, easily. So, and it's been able to get that immediacy, and we're not counsellors, you know, it's knowing the boundaries. We're not counsellors, you know, we're not medical, but I've always said the power of listening is so undervalued all the time, and listening and people really feeling heard.
Absolutely.
And
totally.
we're not doing therapy with people, but that's therapeutic in itself.
Totally. Couldn't agree more. Well,
Yeah.
I do you know, honest to goodness, I really feel as though I've learned something really worthwhile. I'm kind of looking in my own work and thinking, oh, when I get back, I'm under my bossicle, and you know, I'm gonna hunt this out a little bit more, because equally, I can see that, you know, I am employed part-time in a charity sector, and, you know, of course the waiting lists are increasing. David, I'm sure your waiting lists are the same, and it's, you know, by the time you get to people, you know, that sort of access to a social prescribing link worker actually could make quite a difference.
Absolutely. Yeah, a huge difference.
Yeah.
Just in my experience, you know, and locally.
Yeah, because where does a GP send somebody that is presenting with some level of emotional distress?
Yeah, and it's the service is so diverse as well, Amanda, from what I hear. I mean, there so many people fall between stools, you know, and a lot of people. Yeah.
Do. I do. I love it when I learn something. So my postage stamp has now taken on a little bit extra there. Just fabulous. And you've just explained it really, really, really beautifully, really eloquently.
Yeah. So I think it's I think the reason I love the work, and I've kind of I've slightly fallen into the lead role, but I didn't apply for it, but it's kind of like it kind of happened. But the reason why I really love the work, I love the organisation that I work for, and the ethos and the values that we have, is it just aligns to, it just makes sense, and I think it aligns to some of my values around that, being empathetic and compassionate, and just the kindness and giving people time. Do you know what I mean? It's quite nice, isn't it? To be able.
Yeah, just hit the nail on the head. Time is really important. Giving people time.
You know, it's really an honour, I think, for people to be so open, and it's quite surprising, you know, even though they've not met some of us face to face, and because of COVID, the amount that they open up, and I think that's an honour and a privilege, to be in that position whereby people open up to you, and then, you know, trying to help and support them with some of that.
And are you, as an organisation, are you supported to do what you do? I bang on a little bit about, you know, because this is all helping profession. I don't care if you're a counsellor, a psychiatrist, you know, a nurse, a doctor, you know, whatever, a social prescriber, link worker. What support do you get to do this? Because this is bloody hard stuff.
Yeah, no, I think I feel very fortunate. As you know, Aneesh, I have moved around organisations and different roles a fair bit. So I have sort of various experience in life and in my career. I feel very fortunate to work for the organisation that I do work for currently. I think they really do live their values. They really do absolutely care about staff, and we look to, you know, recruit people that really care, not just about our clients, but about themselves and each other. So there is plenty of talk, and there's been plenty of talk and space and time to think about our own self-care and well-being, and looking after each other. And I think I've got a fab team in Newcastle, because, you know, totally sort of help each other out that way as well. It's not a kind of, that's not my job or anything like that. It doesn't go on. So in terms of values, but I do totally get what you're saying. You know, I have worked in other organisations that are part of that kind of caring profession, and sometimes I felt quite disappointed that, you know, the carers aren't being cared for. And
you can't do it if you're not.
Yeah, and it seems a cruel and horrible irony when that happens. And I do worry for all the medical staff that are currently going through this crisis, and especially sort of in the acute hospitals in particular, where they're working long hours in incredibly difficult circumstances. And where are they getting the time and the space to deal with trauma that they're dealing with day to day, losing probably their colleagues, possibly their family, but, you know, so many patients, you know, that's a massive amount of trauma that they're dealing with. So yeah, I'm very fortunate to be where I am, but, you know, I do acknowledge that not everybody is as fortunate.
Yeah. Thank you for that absolute honesty as well. It's something that David and I, we have little rants about, don't we, David?
Absolutely. And it never ceases to amaze me how little support there is within organisations for their staff. And as you say, Amanda, some people work under the most horrendous stresses, and I'm gobsmacked by the lack of support there is in a lot of organisations.
Yeah, definitely. I think part of the blessing of that is being in a small organisation at the moment. I think in bigger organisations, it's you know, the culture can be different, the pace can be different, the expectations and things can be different. But I do know from my organisation development days, and I came across Schwartz rounds. I don't know if you've heard of Schwartz rounds. So, and I did attend one. So in some hospitals they do run them, and I think they're a fab idea. And it was basically opening out to all and any members of staff. So there might be a topic, and usually there'd be between 2 to 4 speakers, and it'd be an hour max. It'd be in like lunchtime. So you'd have sort of 2 to 4 people presenting something, quite personal experience, or how it's really about how the care works impacting upon them.
Right.
And then it's opening out to everybody in the audience to kind of comment, but it gives that permission to do a me too. So especially if you're having senior members of staff and senior consultants talking about almost the throughput, you know, of patients, or maybe avoiding that patient because actually I don't have time to deal with them, and then the guilt that comes up for that, or, you know, whatever it might be, whatever might come out. So I think those kinds of things can be incredibly powerful and incredibly helpful to staff.
Yeah. Well, we have supervision, don't we, David? And I don't know about you, David, but I've got different supervisors, and I must say I quite simply couldn't do the job that I do if I didn't have supervision.
No,
and I shouldn't be doing it.
Yeah, I find I need it more and more.
Yeah.
Of course, we're in the usual situation of very often being well, we are in the same situation as many of our clients. We're subject to that horror story that's going on around us at the moment, and it has its impact.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it does. Well,
in our team, because we've got very much an ethos of peer support. So on a monthly basis, we run sort of a action learning set type thing, so group peer coaching basically, where people bring an issue and get those questions asked of each other. But we also have the pick up the phone and, I've had a bit of a horrible call, can I have a bit of a debrief, and do that to each other. And I'll if I have a horrible call, I'll call up one of the members of the team and say, can I have a debrief with you, kind of thing. So you know, it's it works both ways. So but yeah, really important. That self-care debrief is what's really important for anybody in the caring profession.
Yeah, and I realise that we're talking about social prescribing link workers, but I just think it's really important that we keep bringing this up, this support of people who are working in the helping professions. And let's not forget that the helping professions has widened in its community now to postal workers, supermarket workers, delivery people. Any more that you can add in there? Because I never want to miss refuse people, anybody actually that is making this community and society work. They are helping profession people, and I think we just need to give them a bit of a shout out and say, you know what, make sure that you say thank you, and you know, are you all right, mate, when they're delivering milk people. I'm just thinking of the oat milk that gets delivered on a Monday here. So, yeah, you know, anybody that has set up anything that is a home delivery of any type, these are now helping professions. They are, you know, and I'm going to argue with anybody if they say they're not.
Yeah, and it takes no time or effort really to say thank you to anybody at any time, does it?
No, it really doesn't.
And to acknowledge
it really
it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we've only got a little bit political. I think we've been quite well behaved today, actually.
Yeah. Surprised at myself.
I was surprised at you, David.
Surprised at you.
Well, you know, I've decided I was going to behave.
And you kept your promise, as you always do.
I do.
Might not last long, but you know.
Possibly not. So, there's always that pause on record. So.
We'll have to do an outtakes program one day.
Oh, fabulous.
I think I would be in a lot of bad books if we did. So, just for a change.
You've got the best laugh. I've always
always got me into lots of trouble. Always has, and I imagine it will continue to. I'm going to be one of those old ladies that sits there and just giggles at nothing. I've decided, just to see what might happen, because you can do it the older you get.
Oh yeah, there's a certain privilege with age. I can attest to that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
About not caring as much about what people think of you, isn't there? You just like let go of a lot of that. That's
the one, Amanda. That's the one.
Wouldn't it be lovely if we were born with that? So, before we really lower the tone between us three, because we've actually been quite, you know, well behaved, David, I'm going to hand it to you to talk us out and thank our amazing guest, Amanda Glenister.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, David. Amanda. It's been so informative, and I'm going to look up my local service and see where I can, because it does happen that I get into a situation where, you know, what am I going to do outside of my own remit, and that's so useful. So thank you very, very much, and thank you everyone else. I hope this has been useful for you too, and look forward to the next time. And I can't go without saying, Aneesh, pleasure as always. I'm glad we've kicked off again. The last two are a great starter to what's to come.
Yeah, so, definitely. Definitely.
Good to see you. Take care.
You too, David. And Amanda, take care. And Amanda, I'll be joining you for a macaroon very soon.
I very look forward to that. And just want to say to both of you, thank you very much for the invite, and you're doing a great job with doing those community connections. So
Thank you.
Thank you.